Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Subnet Show. I am your host, Gabriel Cardona, and I'm joined by a couple great friends this evening. First off, I'm joined as always by my co-host, the man with the most casts in crypto, who actually noticed last week ended the thing with his cat like this. So there's a screenshot somewhere. Connor Daly, what is up, my friend?
Yeah, the door is open today. Who knows what visitors we will get?
Nice,
Flash, Ollie, who knows? Who knows?
nice. I know you've been super crunched, so thanks for taking some time to chill out for a minute and decompress your brain and join us. And then we're joined by one of the original guests on the Subnet show, going way feels like way back now, a few months ago. The current, I think, the lead, project lead. That's how I perceive your role. Pangolin, Justin Trollip. What is up, Trollip?
Yeah, what's up, Gabriel? What's up, Connor? Always a pleasure to be here. Yeah,
Competing
great to
for
be with you
the
guys.
number one friend of the show right now. You are the second repeat guest, but you were tied with Stephen Buttolph for the most appearances. So you're in tied for first place for best friend of the show right now.
It's a race. I think we'll have to have a competition in Barcelona when it comes out.
Barcelona. I got to put that plug out. Yeah, so the Avalanche Summit's
Yeah.
happening and it's coming together for in focus for Barcelona in February, I believe. I'll definitely be there. I hope to see you gentlemen there as well. That's going to be super slick.
Date is
Mm.
TBD. Sometime
Yeah,
in spring.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah.
spring? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's still coming to focus. The website has no details. So yeah, definitely the dates are TBD. Okay, sweet. So yeah, there's a lot going on in the Avalanche world right now. Obviously, we've been just seeing so much growth in the ecosystem across the board. It's just been an absolute rocket ride. But of course, there's also I don't know if you guys heard that. Somebody screaming outside. There's also a lot happening in the pangolin ecosystem. So of course, it seems like a great time to get Justin on here to bring us up to speed. First, I wanted to open up the entire conversation by wishing you a happy birthday. Yesterday or today was his birthday, so huge milestone. You want to give us any details? I'll leave out the age unless you're willing to.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm old and decrepit anyway, right? So 40, yeah, I hit the big milestone.
Yeah,
Kind of aligned with Pango V2, which is just weird.
yeah,
But yes, so
yeah.
yeah, I guess
Turned 40. So yeah, I turned 40 in April. So that was a big milestone, as you might imagine. It caused me to have the most self-reflection I think I've had of any birthday. So I just, like, what am I doing? What have I accomplished? What do I still want to accomplish? What is the purpose in life? It's like a interesting milestone. So it was a good one though, man. That was a good one for me. I hope you have a great birthday and I wish you the best. And hopefully the next year brings you happiness, health, and success. Looks
I
like
was talking to one of our coworkers at Nava Labs, and we kind of came to the realization that software development and crypto is like special relativity, and the faster your team moves, the more you approach the speed of light, the more you age relative to the rest of time.
interesting.
Your body moves through time faster than everyone else's experience.
Does that mean
yeah.
I'm aging slower or faster?
No,
Slower?
you're aging faster.
I'm aging faster. Man, dang it. What
As
good does that
software
do?
as software development approaches the speed of light, you continue to age faster while everyone around you ages slower.
Oh, I see. Okay, I got you. All right. Well, I'll be Gandalf soon.
Yeah,
Cool.
I
So
always knew you were a wizard.
yes, thank you. Yes. I still don't have any gray though, but I'm sure it's going to be showing up any day now. Now that I'm told I'm 40. All right. So let's talk about some stuff that's happening in Pangolin land. I think we wanted to talk about some stuff that was sunsetting or that will be wrapped up soon. So first off, we have the Avalanche incentive program that's been going on. I'm sorry, Avalanche Rush incentive program that's been going on. And if I remember correctly, Pangolin had 2 million in incentives, and you had mentioned they sunset on December 9th or something. Do you want to give us the details?
Yeah, I think it's December 9th, depending on time zone. I always kind of struggle with when to tell people because, UTC and then you got, but it's around December 9th. Yeah, those rewards run out. And then we're moving, I mean, that PNG single-sided staking has been super popular. People love it. So we want to make sure that, people that want a safe home for their pangolin can have a safe home. So what we're going to do is currently we're busy getting the swap fees. We're using those swap fees to fund like our market maker and all of our centralized exchange listings, but we've actually made enough money over the last few months because it's been amazing. So what we're going to do is we're going to divert those swap fees all the way to single-sided staking, as well as probably push some emissions just to kind of keep that APR nice and healthy. for kind of those people that just want to kind of stake PNG, earn PNG, nice, safe little home for them, get some good returns, and the long-term hodlers, we think that's a great little place for them to hang out.
So now that those rewards are ending, we've got, entirely, you have entirely new things coming out. This is not just some, incentive tweaks. This is a whole Pangolin V2 release that you're hyping up right now. So what does Pangolin V2 mean? What is changing? What is going to stay the same? And why is this an important moment in the project's history?
Yeah, great question. I think it depends on your perspective, like all things in life. So for me, my perspective might be weighted a bit differently. But for me, the thing is, we wanted to be competitive on a few fronts. So tokenomics was a key thing. We wanted to move to a more industry standard tokenomics model, if you could call it that. So from 28 years to 4 years. We also wanted a bit more agility in our smart contracts. So some of our smart contracts is specifically around the farms were quite restrictive in some ways. So we wanted to make sure that they were more able to respond to changing market conditions, that we could kind of reward pairs outside of PNG and AVAX. We wanted something that was simpler to maintain, something that was, but easier and a bit more agile to make us more competitive in that space. And then that's like at a smart contract layer, which we really needed to do. And then in terms of like a UI layer, we've heard the Orange Uniswap banter, and it's fair. I mean, I suppose, so the way that I look at it is you got kind of these industry standards, Sushi and Uniswap kind of like own that space. But we haven't really seen, any real major overhaul of a UI or UX. Like, let's actually rather focus on user experience, right? So, we spent a long time, and I got into a little bit of a Twitter argument with someone the other day about this, but like good UX involves user research. Otherwise, it's just beholden to your own personal biases. The way I'm going to build software or build something is going to like only consider generally me and maybe like a few key. So we did like user research, interviewed people, and that's the result of where we're at now. Is what do people want to use when they come trade? How do we build the experience? Like my 7-year-old father-in-law aped into the new farms when they went live. He was
Turbo rewards.
I was like, dude, you got to get in. And he was like, what is happening here? Like, I got to go. First of all, I got to swap 50-50. Then I got to like pool. Then I got to farm. Then I got to auto compound. And that kind of mental model and overhead for him, it's ridiculous. We take it for granted because, we do it day in, day out, but like, how do we create this platform that like, anyone can use? And so V2 for me is really, I guess, the transition from Pangolin being a bootstrap project into kind of a project that's now fully owned. The DAO kind of has put its own mark on it. It's taken ownership of it, and it's now the DAO's.
Yeah, I think really just for everything you described, it sounds like you're basically everything that Pangolin launched with will have kind of been evolved or discarded in some way or another. And those were some fighting words you said about the smart contracts not being agile enough. I put a lot of time and effort into those.
Apologies, but dude, you deserve all the credit in the world, man.
I have a question. I have a question. Connor, you can probably answer this as well. So, one of the things about Web3 is that it's immutable, right? So the question is, when you go to update like an entire infrastructure of interlocking smart contracts, that can't be a incredibly smooth process. What does that look like? How do you roll something out like this out?
Well, there's two basic, sorry. Just real quick.
No, you go.
So there's two basic approaches that you can do. You can do kind of an upgradable contracts approach, or a versioned hard cut, version 1, version 2 with the migration. So personally, I'm not a big fan of upgradable contracts because I think that unless you have a lot of trust built up with your community already, there's a strong possibility that you could use those to rug pull. Because even if you've disclosed your source code, if somebody has the power to upgrade their contracts, they could swap them up for something that they could use to rug pull very easily. And so when you're dealing with a kind of anonymous new teams without a lot of reputation already gained in the community, it's hard to have a project that's trustworthy that has upgradable contracts. So for most people, I recommend
Flesh out what an upgradable contract is. It seems like I know intuitively.
Sure. That's a good question. So an upgradable contract is a contract that you can actually swap out the code in place while maintaining the state. So if I have like a token with a list of balances, I can swap out that token and what functions are available to call on it while keeping all of the balances the same for each user. And the user won't have to do anything. I can just press the upgrade button. It'll swap out the code. User doesn't do anything, but now the new functionality is unlocked. Versus the kind of the migration approach where I would deploy a token V2 and require every user to call a function to transfer their balance from the old contract to the new contract. Justin, you looked like you wanted to jump in.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just, because there's a Diamond EIP standard. So this is just me purely wanting to ask your opinion. Would that be what you would recommend to do this?
I'm actually not familiar with that one.
Okay. I think it's in draft. Anyway, okay, segue. Sorry, ignore me.
That was my next question. Is there a format for this? Is there an EIP? Is there an ERC20? Or is there an ERC? And it sounds like there is something, at least in the draft.
So mostly it's actually an Open Zeppelin standard. I don't think there's an EIP behind it necessarily. There might be. But Open Zeppelin is a fantastic company that's produced a lot of open source, highly audited, highly used, highly reviewed smart contracts that are very likely to be safe. Nothing's ever 100%, but there's been a ton of eyes on these. They're pretty as trustworthy as something can get in the space. And they have contracts that allow you to basically import an upgradability feature into your contract so that at a later date, you can swap that contract out for another one. It does it by something called a proxy, basically. Since smart contracts are immutable, you might wonder, how do you actually deploy one that's upgradable? Basically, what you do is you have a proxy contract that holds your state, and you swap out the kind of back-end functionality contract that the proxy points to. So that's kind of how it works.
And you said you suggest instead of that I guess you called it, instead of upgradable contract, you called it what was the other
hard versioning with migrations. It's not, I don't have a great single term for it off the top of my head. It depends. Like sometimes upgradable makes sense. If you're Aave and you have the resources to make sure everything is highly audited and a lot of community trust where nobody's worried about the trustworthiness of Aave. Like they're not going to rug pull. They know what they're doing. They can deploy upgradable contracts and it's very easy. But if I want to just launch my own platform as an anon, I've been studying Pangolin and I now want to do, launch my own DEX or something like that. And I want to have community success. Upgradable contracts are a red flag for some people, because you don't necessarily know if that person is going to rug pull on you. It's harder to tell.
And is there one of them that is inherently more risky to a developer? Can I really shoot myself in the foot with one of them, other than the rug pull scenario? Is there one where I can just nuke state or nuke something in some really bad way?
Oh yeah, you can totally do that with the versioned approach.
Got it.
So that's why it is challenging. It's not as safe, but this is why smart contract development is so hard, because you have to be very confident that the code you ship is trustworthy and reliable and does what you think it does and doesn't do anything you don't think it does. So that's where you can really run into trouble. In which I have to say, I am very proud that after being live for 9 months, the Pangolin governance contracts were not compromised a single time, which, that's an eternity in this space, especially with the volumes and TVL that Pangolin has seen. And I feel pretty good that there were no vulnerabilities in that contract. It might turn out 20 years from now, like we find out there's bugs in like the bash interpreter in like Windows or whatever, but I feel pretty good.
You get a sense of how much of Connor's legacy stuff still there, or has it been totally refactored out with V2?
So, there's still a lot of stuff that will never really change, in a lot of ways,
Sure.
So, we had this choice, we could upgrade, we could form a new token and then do all of that. we had a lot of debates. Connor's legacy will always be there. At like 100%. But it's a fast change and evolving ecosystem, so the thing is, everyone, like, I think it's just to remain competitive and to be in this game, you have to evolve and you have to try new things and take risks. It's just part of it.
So talk to me, what did the journey, go ahead real quick, because I got a good question.
I was just saying, it's just like, and it's a big part of it is just how much can you accomplish before you burn out? Because that's the thing, is like, you have an advantage, you get in the space and it's just like, okay, I have this little bit of advantage. How far can I push this before we run out of steam? Because that just happens to so many teams.
So
burnout's real, man.
Yeah, burnout is quite real. If you're watching this out there and you think you might be getting burned out, you probably are. Take some time off, because burnout is quite real. And I've definitely hit the wall hard a couple times in my life, and it really, really sucks. So walk me through the journey of the V2 thing. So number one, I was wondering, like, what does the team look like that does the brainstorming on what your tokenomics are going to be like? Is it just you, or do you have a whole team, and what does that process look like? And then what did the actual process of getting into V2 look like? Did you have community proposals? Did you have vote and governance? How was the DAO involved?
Yeah, it's huge. It's a huge, like, I call myself, we have these titles on LinkedIn, which are kind of bullshit titles, but really it's, so you look professional when you're in meeting. But my title is cat herder. I think that is the most apt description of what I do. It is literally my life, bro. So yeah, man. So like, you have discussions. Everyone knows that we got to move to like a 4-year vesting schedule. Okay, cool. You got mass adoption, mass agreement. We've got a so there's different elements of the DAO, right? There's the multi-sig, which kind of has to sign off things. Then there's a broader kind of core team that work, and they're kind of on the front lines. And then there's a community, right? So you got to kind of manage all of these different sub-segments, and then you've got to obviously vocalize what you're planning. Then you've got to wait for, the contrarian views, or the people that like, which are good, but I mean, sometimes it can suck on your soul, where like everyone's just like, oh yeah, nah, don't do that. So then you got to kind of verbalize it, kind of get the thing out there. Everyone knew
where is this dialogue happening? On social media or Discord, or where?
Right, everywhere. So there's Telegram, there's Discord, there's Twitter. There's phone calls, there's team meetings. We have like team meetings. Then we've got like an assortment of people, right? So we've got kind of head of business dev, we got like head of strategy that's coming in now, which kind of like negotiates the PNG emissions. Then obviously, the guys and love so well, like Leo and Brandon, you've got like all of these people. Then you kind of reach this kind of consensus, almost like an uneasy consensus, where you've got to just take your gut feel. Like if I speak to 10 people and, like 7 of them seem like good and 3 are like contrarian and don't dig it, well, then you kind of got to take your gut to the next step. The problem with a DAO, like anything in life, when you have too many decision makers, you need someone to put their, to kind of put their reputation at stake and go, well, shit, we're going to do this. So then you take it to the next step. Multi-sig, once multi-sig's got it, then you've got to actually do the engineering work, right? So you've actually got to decide, okay, how do we do this? That's a big thing with Brandon, talking to a lot of like Benny, talking to a lot of the guys, like what is the best in like fundamental way we do this? Obviously safety. Then you've got to get audits. So we've got like our auditors, Holborn, shout out to Holborn, they've been great. Then you got to get it audited. Then you got to align marketing. So now you got to get marketing. You got to make sure the messaging is correct, because what we're doing is technical, right? So like you got to make sure you put that into terms. Then you got biz dev, because we had to like kind of choose certain farms. So now how do you not like, make sure that we're not sacrificing relationships with people, because the like Sherpa got cut. Luckily I'm on Sherpa, so I can kind of blame myself for that one. How do we make sure that we're still like being fair to projects? How do we make sure we're being fair to the ethos of Pangolin? So it's like herding cats, bro. Like, he has a cat that doesn't want to do what you tell it. You got to kind of like try ask it and push it in line, or
if there's one thing I know, it's cats. So I can attest that's what that's like.
And so how long does this process take?
So so look, we knew for a while the audit was the thing that took the most time, and then the planning around it. We wanted to align it with the new UI, so we wanted the migration portion to be part of the new UI. So then we had to make sure that we weren't incurring technical debt. So the whole process has taken a few months. because we had to revise a lot of stuff. We had a lot of people join in the team, so upskilling them. Yeah, I can't remember when we got the audit. Must have got the audit a few weeks back. And then just
and the other part of this process is you actually put this to a community vote, because you are a DAO, and I think Pangolin is honestly one of the most DAO-y DAOs that actually does governance, that actually does real community votes of like consequence in the ecosystem. And the governance process is not short. It is kind of intentionally very long to make sure that people actually have time to read proposals, people have time to vote, people have time to deal with the consequences of that vote before it's actually implemented. So that itself adds another like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think governance will be the next major foundational element I want to tackle. I'm a big, so governance works. I mean, depending on the side of the fence you sit on that particular one, but I don't think we've yet found the optimal pragmatic kind of where's the
user experience.
User experience, exactly right.
Yeah.
And like, but also governance as a concept, so kind of at the moment we're like, oh yeah, democracy, right? Like kind of this like almost Switzerland-based democracy. Whereas like, is that the optimal governance structure? Like there's a lot of like philosopher kings that theoretically have been proposed. There's also like, different forms of governance. How does that look like within a kind of DAO structure? Because I don't think everything has to be voted upon, but where does the accountability start and end? And how do you ensure that people are accountable? I think that's the key thing.
And another thing is, even if you go with a total democracy, you can tune the parameters. Do you want to make it a vetocracy, or where things are passed by default and are, you have to work to stop them? Or is it really hard to get something passed in the first place? Pangolin is definitely it's easier to get things passed versus something like Uniswap, where it's much harder to get things passed. And I think that was very intentional on our part at the beginning, because we wanted to make sure, when I was like looking at Uniswap back in the day, I thought Uniswap governance was kind of a failure. They'd had like 4 governance proposals at the time, and I think none of them had passed, or maybe like one of them did. But just the thresholds of votes were like so high that even projects that were like, nobody was really voting against these. It was just that they couldn't get quite enough support. And especially when that token was distributed to so many like VCs and stuff, you had to win over very specific people to get your vote cast or your vote passed, where we want Pangolin to be a bit more agile and dynamic.
And how much pushback do you get
for governance? Well, all of the votes have been socialized to a point where it's kind of like a formality. So this is another thing you got to think about. So currently what you got to think about is, the on-chain governance is really just for the on-chain resources. It's the treasury. Like we actually have a lot of autonomy in a lot of other things, but having that autonomy also presents itself quite a few dictatorial vectors, if you will, right? So so then the thing is, then how do you ensure that power, like I like the kind of the snake eating its own tail, right? So everyone kind of keeps itself like in check. So this and that's where I think DAOs haven't really evolved. I mean, it's unfair to expect DAOs to be perfect. They're such a new concept. But I think that's where you're going to see DAOs evolve. Gitcoin is a great inspiration for me. Shout out to Gitcoin. Those guys are amazing. And I think there's a lot we can learn from them. But I think we haven't seen the final form. That final form is evolving, and we have to be very agile in order that we can evolve with it. Because governance is important, accountability is important, equitable distribution of wealth is important. But if you're just another also-ran project that drowns in governance, well, then none of your fancy ideals mean anything.
Yeah, it's very true.
And have you, so is all this live now? Is V2 live as we speak?
So V2 contracts are live. The migration new UI is live. So we wanted to give people that are migrating like a sneak peek. So if you migrate your pools, you'll see the new UI, which I'm very proud of. I mean, that's a very small part of it. Like some of the other stuff is incredibly cool. But what we did was we've got the foundational elements for V2, the UI. So that'll come quick. The contracts are live, the farms are live, the farms are amazing. And we've got this 2 million PNG, which is what, like 4 million USD that we've sponsored from the treasury to kind of bump it. So yeah, for the next month, it's farming season.
Yep, Gabriel, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you very much. That's great to know. Okay, good. Have you done any thoughts on V3?
Yeah. I mean,
Dude,
I'm
man.
always
They just had me too. Like, this is like when you make a movie and somebody is just like, "Are you thinking about the sequel?" Dude, I just spent 2 years making this movie, and you want the next one? Like how much of my life do I have to give before you'll be satisfied?
Never.
But it's dude, this is why we're in this space though, because we love it, right? So the thing is, that's exactly what I'm thinking too. So V2 is it's an evolution, so there'll be iterative versions, but V2 was what I consider almost like a foundational version, right? So it was creating solid foundations so that V3 doesn't require as much technical overhead. So there's a lot in V3. There's a lot in V3. There's a new feature that I'm particularly amped about that I think, I'll leave it there, man.
Sure, yeah. You don't gotta tease anything. Just good to know you guys are already thinking about V3.
Well, we've got the design going. So you got to think we work in streams, right? So the thing is, design comes first, which we've got 2 amazing UI UX designers. Shout out to Abdullah and Narav. So they finished the design for V2. You know what I mean? But then there's an engineering kind of stream that has to kind of follow it. So while the engineers are catching up, the designers are hitting up V3. So like, it's kind of this like the way that we just
it's the pipeline. You got it. When V2 gets to the end of the pipeline, you got to have something else starting at the tip of the pipeline. So yeah, there's some amount of like tech debt or like maintenance or whatever that has to go on, but there's so many different parts of the organization. Like you have to be thinking about the strategy and where you want to go. Because even for your incremental upgrades, you always have to think about like, are we randomly walking somewhere right now, or do we have like a targeted direction of like, this is where we want to head? Mm-hmm. And so I think you guys have that. You have the concepts for V3, maybe not the execution yet, but kind of the direction you want to take it.
Yeah. And it's ambitious. Like, so the thing is, what a lot of people don't realize, people are like, oh, when devs do something, but like, if you're building something that will fundamentally change the game, you ain't building that in a month. That's like going to take a bit of time. So, you can roll these things incremental, but like that kind of longer term game changes, you have to put in the requisite time.
Yeah. It's so true. Just like, there's so many people who are just like clients that come to Avalabs or whatever. And they're like, we have this new marketplace. We want to build this. We want to build this new website, and we're going to build it in a month from scratch. And it's just like, man, that is not how long things take. No. If you're forking and just changing a color scheme, yeah, you can do that. But exactly. Anything more sophisticated, building from scratch, like some of this stuff is really complicated. Some things, people love to idolize the hackers that can throw stuff together in a weekend. And there's like some stuff you can do like that. But when you want to build like really complicated pieces that have a lot of interactions, that have a lot of customer requirements, that especially when you're keeping track of money and you want to make sure people don't lose money, or if you have to manage like refunds or something like that, all these like real world use cases that, they're challenging. You want to make sure people don't, when you throw something together in a weekend, you can usually get a good proof of concept, but it usually has problems, technical debt, whatever, that you can't bring to a full market product.
That was actually a dang good transition right there, Connor. You set me up perfectly. So speaking about like what can you build over the course of a weekend about versus what you can build over the course of time, that brings me to the concept of sort of hackathons. And we have been planning a lot of different hackathons in the Avalanche ecosystem. There are several that are working in different directions right now that I'm involved in. And some of them are over the weekends and some of them are longer. And we've been debating the merits of each of them, because there are merits to each of them. Obviously, when you work on something over the weekend, you just get the germ of an idea and you're not going to launch a fully featured project. You might just get an MVP. Whereas if you work over something for a long time, you have a better chance of fleshing it out, but you might not get it across the finish line because you made us not be dedicated. So, you know, there's pros and cons, but just yesterday, I believe, maybe it was even today, there's so much going on. We just announced a huge new hackathon that we're involved in, and Pangolin is involved as well. So I wanted to cover that right now. So there is, you guys may be aware of, I know you guys are aware of him, Ivan on Tech. There is a gentleman named Ivan on Tech who is like a YouTube personality. That's how I knew about him. He's an OG. I know he goes back before sort of like the crypto craze and has been doing tech videos on YouTube for many, many years. And he has a team that has created something called Moralis, and Moralis is like Firebase for crypto. So, you know, it's basically like a cloud backend for crypto. So, you know, if you need an indexer or a full node, or they have a bunch of different pre-built React components, and it's pretty slick. You can really throw together some nice crypto UIs relatively fast. So there is a new hackathon, the Moralis hackathon in the Avalanche ecosystem, and it is huge. There is over $350,000 in prizes right now, which is just, that's a lot of freaking money, right? I was in Wyoming recently, and the pool was 117,000, and I remember thinking, they're like, damn, that's a lot of money for a hackathon. This is 3 times that much. It's really, really crazy. Like $300,000, that's a dang good angel round. You know, you can, I'm sure there's plenty of startups who've started on less. So anyway, let me read the little blurb here. It says basically like partners for the hackathon include Avalanche, Covalent, Banky, Trader Joe, Yield Yak, Snowball, Pangolin, and Penguin Finance. And these partners are joined by leading venture capital firms: Three Arrows Capital, Republic, AP Capital, GBV Capital, Alameda Ventures, GSR. So basically, we have a huge hackathon that's coming up. It starts on, what are the dates? December 6th through January the 1st. So it's about a month and a half. And there are 2 pools prizes. There's like, I don't know the numbers out of that 350 grand. I don't know how it breaks down yet. I've heard different from different people, but basically there's like the main prizes, which are just, you show up, you build something creative, and we vote on that. There's first, second, and third. And then there are going to be bounties, which the different teams I just mentioned are going to be putting up bounties. So do you have any idea what your intentions are with Pangolin? Have you guys tossed it around yet? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, like there's so much going on. I've always got ideas, but the thing is, it's as a DAO, it can't be just me, right? So generally the way that these things work is I'll kind of talk to Brandon, I'll talk to Leo, I'll talk to the team, the broader team, and kind of see what their feelings are. Yeah, there's so much cool stuff to be built. This is the beautiful thing about such a nascent technology, is that like, it doesn't take a lot to come up with a cool idea. Like there's plenty of cool things.
Do you think you're going to, do you have an, do you, if you don't know the answer, you don't know the answer, but I wonder, are you guys looking to potentially hire somebody from that role, or are you going to try and, do you think you'll submit an idea for somebody to build something for or on Pangolin, or something just for Avalanche in general? The reason I mentioned that is, whenever I was at Bitcoin.com, we had a hackathon in Amsterdam, and the team which won that hackathon, one of the engineers there reached out to me and was like, hey man, I'm looking for an internship. And we ended up bringing him onto Bitcoin.com, and he ended up creating what's called CashScript, which is like the Solidity-like language for creating smart contracts in Bitcoin Cash. And I'm trying to get him to join the Avalanche ecosystem, but he hasn't pulled the trigger yet. But the point simply being, hackathons can be really good places to find potential employees. So both from our perspective or your perspective, if you're hiring, but also if somebody's listening to this and you're looking for an opportunity to get into the Avalanche ecosystem, number one, there's $350,000 in prizes. You could literally come and win a significant, you know, a non-trivial amount of money. And number two, you could potentially connect with them or with us and get a job. So I don't know your thoughts on that.
Hell yeah. So I'll give you my approach to hiring, right? So so first of all, we're in a bull market, so everyone and their dog is a Solidity developer, and then they come on board, and then you know they don't even know how to deploy via hard hats. So you're like, okay, well, so the way I look at it is references. You know, that's how I've met some of the most talented people in the space. Is I really respect someone, they respect someone, and they're like, oh, this dude's awesome. And you're like, okay, cool. Well, like, you know, I kind of know they're going to be awesome if he thinks they're awesome. And then actual ability to perform, or you know, actual work, body of work. And that's where hackathon's awesome, because it's not you giving me some fancy CV where you've kind of Googled the most popular crypto terms or Solidity terms, you've plugged it, you've actually built something, and I'll take that any day of the week versus like someone's padded out CV, especially in DeFi, man, because DeFi, it's all about rolling your sleeves up and getting involved. So yeah, like if there's someone from that hackathon that would love to work at Pangolin, we are always looking for talent. Like we've scaled over the last month crazy, and we're always looking to scale more.
One thing that's really crazy to me is I don't think it's necessarily possible to hire rockstar Solidity developers. Like I think that there's a kind of a skill level that if you can hit that skill level, you honestly should not be working for like another people. Like you can go found your own project so easily, or go do like MEV arbitrage or like something like that on your own, where it's just like, or if they are looking for work, the amount of money that they can ask for is astronomical. That if you actually want to get top tier people, you need to grow them. You don't need to hire them. You need to I think the best way to succeed in this ecosystem right now is to find people who are undervalued and not properly valued, because people who are properly valued are too expensive and too hard to get. So I think if just kind of from a hiring perspective, I think unfortunately we're at a place where you have to take chances on people. It's, things become less of a sure bet, but things I think can really pay off if you can find the right people.
I agree completely, and being smart about it, like Rust engineers, someone that can manage, memory management, like you do in Rust, like, or Golang engineers, a lot of those skills transcend, right? So like, I've met Rust engineers, and those dudes are like, I've always got mad respect for people that build in Rust. So like, if you can build in Rust, I'm pretty sure you'll pick up Solidity, right? Like, especially with the amount of work, and so.
Yeah, there's kind of like two schools of thought of this. I think there's like some people who are really into like, you're only an expert in a language when you've been using it for like 20 years and you have to know every like trick in the book, and like then you can be effective in that language. Whereas I much more fall on the other side of the fence, where like if you're a good programmer, it doesn't really matter what you're using, and like you can make those transitions if you understand the abstractions, if you understand kind of like good security concepts, things like that. Those skills are much more transferable. And so personally, I don't think I've never been really great at a language. I think that I've never really stuck with something so long, or just been so interested in the nuances of a language that I kind of like would read the compiler notes to like figure out exactly how to get the perfect optimization, or even to always read the next release notes for the newest patch to figure out what new features I was getting. I was more just concerned about, can I accomplish what I want to accomplish? And maybe I don't always do it the most elegant way, but I always try to do it the most correct way, the most secure way. And I think those skills transfer very well when you're in an environment that requires a lot of agility and changing technologies.
Yeah, this is good. This sounds like we're breaking into the alpha zone. So this makes me want to say, do you have any alpha knowledge you want to drop us?
DeFi 2.0. It's which, so let's talk about DeFi 2.0, because it's a cool topic. And there's some cool stuff that you can do on it that is absolutely amazing. So let me, if you'll allow me to kind of digress a bit.
Really quick, just in case any listeners are not familiar, could you just define what you mean by DeFi 2.0 real quick?
Definitely. So it's kind of the so originally the first kind of emissions type structure, like, so if you look at AMMs and DEXs and, DeFi as a whole, protocols emit their own governance token to reward people for performing some form of behavior. Right, so on Pangolin, you become an LP, you get rewarded by PNG emissions, the governance token, therefore incentivizing you to become a liquidity provider, and therefore allowing the platform to operate. That's DeFi 1.0, popularized by an Aussie, actually, the dude from Synthetics. He was the first dude that came up with anyway. And then like Sushi obviously was the kind of major, I guess, headline when they kind of did the vampire on Uni. Now what we're seeing is that's in DEXs, at least, it's you rent in liquidity, right? So it attracts a certain mercenary crowd, if we could call it that way. Mm-hmm. So you're paying people, you're saying, okay, cool, come here, we're going to rent your liquidity. And then like, someone else pops up and they're like, oh yeah, Grant, we're going to give you some cash too. We're going to rent your liquidity. So that liquidity becomes incredibly mercenary, and it just goes and chases yield. yield farming craze. I mean, we've all done it. No judgment. Again, from like a sustainability point of view and projects building for like a longer term future, probably not the most sustainable kind of way to go about things. So now what they're talking about is DeFi 2.0, and it's the evolution of that, right? So if you think about rented liquidity, you can now move into things like protocol owned liquidity and also liquidity as a service. So it's kind of, like the beautiful thing about DeFi is it is moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But Olympus was the kind of first major release of this kind of protocol owned liquidity. And what that means is, the DEX or the AMM or whatever other protocol owns the liquidity on their platform and then earns the fees and earns the emissions through their own platform. Much more sustainable. They get a diversified treasury. They get in fees back into the DAO. Much more sustainable. And then you got some other funky stuff, which is like liquidity as a service, right? And you got like Tokamak, which are doing some awesome stuff in Ethereum there. And this is also something that confuses me, is why people are super maximalist against Ethereum, because there's so many cool projects that are pushing boundaries there. Like Tokamak. I mean, go have a look at Tokamak. It's cool. And that's kind of like, how do you then have liquidity as a service? So then you allow people to kind of divert these flows based upon what they have as reactors. So a lot of people say like Olympus is DeFi 2.0, but some other people, I'll probably include myself, thinks the next evolution is actually the Tokamak model.
Interesting. And Wonderland is a fork of Olympus, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So can I talk about another one super cool thing? So like, I don't know if there's an official term for it, but it's called like a fold-in strategy. This is awesome. So like, let's say, for example, you lend and then you get collateral, but if you can lend on a stable coin and you can get a fixed interest percent, let's leave it at that. And let's say that fixed interest percent is 20%. You then have that interest-bearing token. You can then deposit that, get collateral, 80% of that interest-bearing token. So now you got 20% plus the 20% on your collateral. You can then fold it. I think fold-in is the right term, but I don't know if like the industry has kind of defined this term, like if it's an industry nomenclature. But anyway, so then you fold it. Now you got the 80%, you fold that, you get another 80% on the 80%, and you keep folding it down and down and down. So theoretically, from a single-sided token, you can get like 100%, 160% yield. And you're seeing this happen in the DGen box from the Abracadabra. They're doing it now. There's a few concerns I have about their particular implementation, but I think this is gonna just blow up very soon.
So I think that it's like some protocols like Snowball are actually doing that on like Aave and BenKey now, I believe. You can deposit I think you can deposit some stables, borrow stables against them, and then keep on folding. And so that is actually why some people will fight the TVL metrics on chains, and that's why some people will compute it differently, because some people will in fact take folding out of TVL.
So is that the difference between Open DeFi and Marker?
Yes, exactly. So I believe DeFi Llama, I think, takes it out, and Marker does not. So basically, and the reason for this, we'll just do it with numbers real quick. These are all fake numbers, but if I deposit $100 and then I can borrow $10 against that $100, I can then reinvest that. I can redeposit that $10. So now I've deposited $110, and now I can withdraw another $1 and put that in. So now I've deposited $111 into the system. So the TVL for that is going to be $111. But I only actually put in $100, of my own money. So $100 new dollars entered the system, but the TVL went up by 111. So that's why there's some or discrepancies between different metrics. Some people will talk about like it's higher here, not higher there. That's one of the reasons that you'll see that.
Yeah,
and because lending is so popular. Because lending is so popular and has so many billions of dollars in it, that adds up significantly.
Gotcha. Okay, I always wondered, that was such a big discrepancy. Sometimes they'll be off by like $8 million, just be crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Got it. All right, those are the 3 things on my list. You guys got anything else you want to talk about? It's
Yeah, it was so cool just seeing you so excited about all this stuff. Like you're so energized about it. This
Dude,
Pangolin V2 injecting some life into you.
well, that's that's the thing. It's like no one wants to fix foundations. It's the boring part of building a house, right? You know, you
Yeah.
kind of like it's not very sexy digging a hole and putting concrete in it, but like once you start like kind of having those foundations, you get to build the really cool stuff. And I mean, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff here.
Or maybe this is just what you're like when I talk to you at not 5 a.m. your time.
That's fair. That's fair.
Were you always a morning person, or have you just been forced to become one?
So like I've got kids. So that, and the thing is in Queensland, bro. So like where I live in Queensland, like so Australia has daylight savings, but in Queensland, because the state's so big, they won't do daylight savings because apparently it messes with the cows. So there's this big thing. So like, so like the sun's up super early and it's hot, it's sweaty, it's muggy. So it's just like I get up and I might, you know, it just is what it is. But
That's
back in
right.
the
It's
day,
summer for you.
dude, I haven't worn long pants in months. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's
Yeah.
toss the mic around one time before we close it up. You want to give a shout out to anybody or any last minute thoughts?
Yes, just shout out to the Pangolin team, man. Like I'm just, you know, like one of many, and you know, like let me act like the talent on that team and the hard work, like it's sheesh, man. Like honestly, the people that work on Pangolin are the coolest. I'll say this to whoever will listen to me. They're the coolest, nicest, most talented bunch. And sometimes people don't always see that because you know we're fixing things behind the scenes or there's a lot of things being planned. But like they make me incredibly humble and grateful. Like, yeah, the definitely the Pangolin team. They're like every day they surprise me. Every day they impress me.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to forget that the project has only been around for like 9 months. And as far as, you know, it's existed for 9 months, you've only been attached to it. And a team has only really been attached to it for like 6 months. And everything that's happened has been just so quick. And as well, just the work that you guys have been doing behind the scenes, you know, you don't necessarily always like ship immediately. There is that delay of like kind of building things up. And I like what you're doing, kind of doing the big V2 push to kind of like have kind of a harder transition rather than kind of just release things like slowly one at a time. I think it's just so impactful, and I'm just really glad that the community is getting a chance to finally see all the cool stuff that I've seen behind closed doors, because it is very neat. I've seen the designs, and the new site is going to be really amazing. And this is just a credit to you, credit to the team. I think the future of Pangolin is very bright. We've been seeing all kinds of all-time highs for TVL, and it's been really awesome.
Yeah. One more shout out, Daniel from Ava Labs. Dude has been an absolute legend. Obviously, everyone at Ava Labs we got a lot of love for, but Daniel just goes above and beyond. That dude
Daniel
is just
Killeen,
amazing.
right? Daniel Killeen.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel, what's
Yeah.
up? Yeah, I agree, 100%. Yep. Okay, sweet. Connor, any thoughts?
Just closing thoughts. So this show is available on YouTube, but you can also find it on podcast services around the globe: Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio. I think all your favorite podcast services. If you're a listener instead of reviewer, you can find us there. And then if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at I am DAS_Connor, DAS_CONNOR. And Justin, where can people follow you?
I'm generally on Twitter, Trollip, JTROLLIP. Telegram, I'm pretty active. Discord, pretty active. Yeah, I'm generally around. I try to go pseudo anonymous in some aspects, so like I have different call signs. So Twitter is probably the best place to reach out. Yeah.
Oh, Gabriel, you muted yourself again.
Jeez, man, sorry. Yeah, all right. Thank you guys both for joining, as always. And if you guys have made it this far, you are a champion. We always express gratitude to the amazing community. This is the best time I've ever had in my career. There's just so much popping off every day. So yeah, please check out Pangolin V2, and please also check out the Moralis hackathon. As I mentioned, it starts in a couple weeks, and it's going to be going almost 2 months with $350,000 in prizes. So thank you so much. We'll see you next week on the Subnet Show. As always, from Snowflake to Avalanche and through consensus to the stars. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Cheers.